All right. I think my audio might be coming through just my AirPods, so hopefully that sounds good. If not, we'll fix it on the next round. Um, let's get into it. I think yesterday we left off. So we'll just get right back into it and start watching. I think once we finish this, I'll open up this depth video on the SX property, which um, I don't think we're probably not going to be using this on our project because I would rather have build a theme for our project at work that I'm learning Material UI for. But I know there's another team that uses themes are really good on version 6. Um, or maybe I'm not sure why they didn't use a theme. Maybe they're just working on it. And he was saying that they use the SX property quite a lot. So that's why I'm diving into that. I will probably check out his um, little course playlist here. See if there's anything, excuse me, interesting there. And then this video seems also interesting. I'm just kind of like looking as I'm going. Anyway, um, yeah. So we will be doing that, and I'll probably open this up right after this, and then go into those two things that I just opened up. Um, Sweet. All right. So yeah, let's get into it.
To do it as well. But let's go back to theming and the other, and then
Oh, by the way, I've got this at 1.25, so if it's too fast for you, go ahead and just slow down my video. I usually watch stuff at 2x speed, so just a little faster than 1x for right now because 1x feels incredibly slow. And although I do need it a little slower since I'm watching it for reading and not, or for learning and not just like entertainment or educational entertainment. So, okay. Sorry, enough jibber jabbering for me.
have it to 4 and stuff like that, and that will essentially allow you to do it as well. But let's go back to theming, and the other cool thing I want to talk about theming is how to use custom colors in theming. So let's say, for example, we make a custom color, and I'm just going to copy the example I have from my theming video. So in the palette, I'm going to add a custom color, and let's just call it my custom color. And I have like multiplied by is the spacing value of the actual theme itself, which by default is just 4 pixels. So you can do P in theming. So let's say, for example, we make a custom color, and I'm just going to copy the example I have from my theming video. So in the palette, I'm going to add a custom color, and let's just call it my custom color. And I have like I'm importing red. You can see here I have the main set to 400, but I also have different variants. I have this like super dark variant and this super light variant. Well, if we wanted to access that, we could actually use the SX prop. So let's go to maybe this like typography over here, and we can pass in the SX prop. And then all we have to do after we pass in the SX prop is we can just set the color. So and that's the other cool thing about the SX prop is that it can read from theme variables. We can set the color equal to whatever my variant name was. So like my custom color. And if we were to go ahead and save that, let's see what would happen. You can see that nothing really happens because we didn't specify sort of the subcolor here. So if I were to then go to my custom color.main, you would see here it changes to that main color. And if we change it to like maybe super dark, it would change it to the slightly darker version of it. And if we change it to super light, it would change it to the slightly lighter version of it as well. And that is pretty much like the easiest way to do like one-off stylings and stuff like that, as well as theme stuff for your actual components as well. Now let's talk about how you can do sort of like JSS stylings and stuff like that. So the sad thing is they sort of by default deprecated using JSS stylings and stuff like that, which was sort of the standard of using Material UI. And instead, they want you to use styled components. So we're going to quickly go over an example of both of them for you guys. I personally prefer, and I still use, even though it's deprecated, I still use the styled version of it. But let's go ahead and, for example, go to make styles, which you might not even be able to find in the documentation. But if I were to come over here, into this demo. So we can come here, and the first thing we're going to go over is actually how to use their styled component. So the styled component, essentially, you're going to have to import this styled prop from Material UI styles. So let's go ahead and import styled component from @material.mui/material/style. once we import that, we can go ahead and choose whatever component we are trying to style. And this is really good if, like, for example, let's before we made our button look like a mutant, let's change it back to what it looked like before. What we can go ahead and do is, let's say I really wanted to make this button custom and I wanted to look like a certain way, and I might reuse this button component in other components and stuff like that. What we can do essentially is go ahead and use their styled method of doing it. So the simplest way to do that is just create a new component for it, and the way you do that is like, say, my custom button. We can then go ahead and pass in styled and pass in the component we're actually trying to overwrite. And then over here, we can add our own styles, like padding, like 10 or whatever. And then we just have to replace our regular button with that button. And if we go ahead and refresh, we will see that the new button, we'll see that the new button will also have these styles that we pass in. So you can then go ahead and like export this and stuff like that. We'll wait for CodeSandbox to catch up, and there you go. You can see that it is going and adding that in. Now, the thing I don't really like about this is the idea when you pass in a value here, like if I were to pass in 2, you can see that it doesn't use the actual theme variables. So if you wanted to use theme, I believe you would have to like do something like this. And then pass in like theme dot spacing, and then pass in like 2. Oh, whoops, we were just missing the squigglies around theme to destructure it. But essentially, you can see here that now I have theme dot spacing 2. And as always, we can go into the theme and we can change spacing to like 1 pixels or whatever if we wanted to change it from 2 times 4 to 2 times 1. So you can see here, if I overwrote that, it would pretty much change the theming. But that is pretty much it for this crash course in Material UI. We talked about what Material UI is, when you should pretty much use it, why it's useful, and how to customize it, how to do the basic things like adding different components, how to style your components in 2 different ways. So we have the styled variation and also the SX prop, and how to create your own custom themes and give it your own look. And Material UI goes so much deeper than that, and that's why I have over a 30 video series on Material UI that you can also check out. Before this, I did a different 30 video series on Material UI, but that was for the old version, so a lot of it's not applicable anymore. And if you found value, I'd really appreciate it if you left a comment and subscribed and liked the video. It helps so much with the algorithm, and I'll see you guys in the next video.
Why do no Intel drivers under 4?
All right, so I'm going to open up this bad boy, the SX property video, and
what's up, my guy?
what is this?
What do you say we ditch the Stone Age and get you set up with my solar?
Hey everyone, welcome.
But we are going to just open this up in incognito mode because I have a YouTube blocker. You can see the, I don't know if you can, yeah, you can see it looks like. And that tracks how long I've been on YouTube, and if I stay on YouTube for 15 minutes in like a 20-minute period, which is just a weird way. If I stay on it for a decent amount of time during my morning working hours, it blocks me, which is great. But I haven't figured out how to make that play nicely with when I do need to watch YouTube, for example, for learning purposes, or for streaming or going on lives. Sorry, I'm just putting on some socks down here because my feet are freezing. Anyway, so I haven't figured out how to get around that, although I have known for a while that you can get around the YouTube plugin by going in incognito mode, which may sound like, well, what's the point of the YouTube plugin? Which is partially true, but I can't log into my YouTube account on incognito. I mean, I guess I could, but I'd have to do that every time. And so then I'm just stuck on like a completely bland, generic YouTube homepage, which is not interesting to me in the slightest. So it still does work for me, but I need to figure out how to make it play nicely. Probably what I'll do is end up creating like a scheduled time, for me to do my lives, YouTube lives every day, but I'm not sure because it seems like I have trouble sticking to a schedule. Although maybe that's just, I don't know, I'm blabbing at this point, but maybe I just need to suck it up and do that. So we'll see. Actually, I'm going to go ahead and add that right now to my to-do list. Take a time to schedule your It's early in the morning and my typing is not great. Self-study coding, YouTube lives. You need to Leech Blocker is the extension I use. I think I've made a video on Leech Blocker and how useful it is. If not, I will make a more in-depth one. Yeah, we'll just add this to Burner. Oh, we'll do this as inbox for now. Okay. Inbox is my version of, hey, we're just throwing it into this, you can think of it as an email inbox, and I'll get to it at some point. Either today or tomorrow, I'll open this up and go through every task I have in my inbox, and I'll schedule that out. So, yeah, over here, I'll just update that to the new version, throw it off to the side. All right. SX property. Oh yeah, we're gonna go to incognito mode and paste in that URL. And hold on, I need to share that tab with you guys. Let's see here. Ooh, I wonder if I can share this with you since it's on a incognito tab. Looks like I can. Perfect. Okay. Oop, that's not what I wanted to do. There we go. It does not look like you guys are seeing the latest on my live. I'm not sure what's up with that. Hello, hello. Okay, so I'm not frozen, but my screen is. Let's try that again. I'm gonna guess it's because I'm on incognito. Sorry, I'm not sure what else to do about that. I'll get that fixed for tomorrow. I'm gonna continue. I'm going. Hopefully, you guys can hear that. But for now, we'll just keep going, and it'll be kind of terrible. Anyway. Sorry about that. All right, there we go. All right. See that? Let me go ahead and close that. I'll go ahead and share my other tab. Let's see here. Um, Sorry, give me 1 second here. All right. This is his playlist. So here's like that first crash course video that we watched, the SX property that I watched in incognito, so it doesn't show it as watched. And then it looks like it gets into themes, SVGs, excuse me, and then specific components. This themes one looks interesting. Yeah, custom colors, fonts, dark mode, space, and baseline. Might watch that one. Let's see what else. There's also, where did it go? Give me 1 second. There's also this one, the ultimate guide for customizing and styling. I think we'll get into this. We will skip to, it looks like he's got quite a few different methods. So we'll just skip to where he gets into theming, theme palettes, styling best practices and tips, styling complex components. And we'll probably just leave it there. This other one that we've got, I don't know.
Excitement comes standard with the Honda, and so does a turbocharged.
Hey everyone.
Let's see what his chapters say. Default theme objects into intro into themes, color palette. MUI theme creator. Okay, this looks useful. Yeah, and this is talking about overriding typography, which is something I'll need to do for do at work. And I'm gonna guess this other one does not talk about overriding typography. Possibly, but it's not obvious. So we'll watch his, which is 22 minutes long. I might have to pull this over into another incognito browser. Yeah, but we'll see. Just so you guys know, this is why I can't access the options right now, because it's I blocked it for myself. So that's why I can't just go ahead and like change it. Actually, what I can do, options. Oh, wait, no, that's not what I wanted. Sorry. I can go into manage my extensions, and I can turn this off here. There we go. Now it doesn't show up there, and I shouldn't have.
And the last option is to use.
Yeah. So I've still got this little badge up here for some reason. Let me reload the page here. That should disappear.
Hey, how's your work going?
Very nice. Okay, we're good. That means we don't have to, or I don't have to do the whole watch it in incognito mode. I'm going to leave up this guy's just in case we want to come back to him, but we're going to switch over to this themes version. And then I'm actually going to open up this SX property video in a separate tab and mute it and let it play through a little bit, just because I want. Oh, look at that! Now already updated. I just wanted my YouTube history to reflect that I had watched this. So let me just reload this one more time. And of course, it's not showing it now. Whatever, doesn't matter. All right, back to this guy. And I just realized you guys couldn't see all my jumping around that I was doing because I'm only sharing this tab so that you guys can hear my audio. But that's fine. Makes it a little easier for me, or a little better for you guys actually, because I didn't have to see me jumping all around going crazy.
Rusty Crab. In today's video, we are going to be looking not at a component this time, but at the theming aspect of Material UI, which is arguably the most important part of Material UI, especially if you're using Material UI to build out something like a big website for a company or anything that has their own design standards. Maybe it's your personal portfolio website and you just want to spice things up and have the colors and typographies all be customized, or maybe you just use a couple of Material UI components here and there. You probably don't need theming in that case, but nonetheless, theming is one of the coolest parts of Material UI because it allows you to customize your entire site and every Material UI component by default into something you like. And if you find value in this video, make sure you leave a comment. It helps a lot with the YouTube algorithm. And also hit that notifications bell and subscribe if you want to learn more about Material UI and React. But yeah, the theming. What a lot of people don't know is by default, every single component you have, if you don't make your own theme, comes with the built-in theme object. And we can explore the actual built-in theme object right here. And by the way, links to everything will be in the description of this video, so don't worry about that. But for example, the theming object that naturally comes to every single component looks like this. Now, we can see there are a bunch of different objects, and I'm going to go over the really important ones. So for example, the breakpoints object, you're probably not going to be touching this if you are just planning to use their default breakpoints. And what breakpoints means is, Material UI by default is responsive. And these are all the breakpoints they have. Extra small screen sizes, medium, large, and extra large screen sizes, and then the pixel width values for those screen sizes. So for example, anything that is greater than 1,536 pixels will be classified as an extra large screen size, and Material UI components will sort of scale themselves to account for that. And also you can do custom breakpoint stylings for your components, which I will talk about in a different video. But just know that all the breakpoints and all the values for the breakpoints are actually in the theme and editable. You probably won't be editing it unless you have some very specific requirements for whatever website you're building. But let's move on to a more popular one. And this one is probably one of the most popular ones you're going to be editing, and that is the palette part of your website. So the palette part of theme, there are a couple of different things. The most notable things are these, I believe, 6-ish objects right here. So you have the primary, secondary, error, warning, info, success. Now, if you remember from all our Material UI component videos, every single component that has any show of color whatsoever probably has a color prop. And that color prop will allow you to, by default, pass in things like primary, secondary, error. Those are all dictated by these colors in the theme. So for over here, we have the primary object in the palette. And you can see the main, aka the default color for primary, is going to just be this bluish color that you see here. The secondary color's main is going to be this, purplish color. Then you have error, which is going to be this red color. Warning is going to be orange. Info is going to be, I believe, another blue. And then success, obviously, is going to be a green color. You can edit all of these through the theme and allow all your components that use secondary or primary colors to pretty much be whatever color you set. The other notable thing about the palette object is this mode right here. This mode has two possible options, light and dark. Before Material UI v5, this used to be called type, I believe. And when you change this to dark, it'll pretty much set your entire website into dark mode. Which is pretty cool. Now, the other interesting thing about the theme object, the other thing you might want to pay attention to is the typography. And the palette, the typography, and the breakpoints are probably going to be the three things you're going to edit the most, if anything. Now, the typography object, number one, has all the default base stylings for fonts and stuff like that inside your application. So you can see here, they're passing in all the default fonts. So for example, the font size, the font weight for regular, the font family, which is going to be defaulted to Roboto and then fall back to Helvetica, Arial, and sans serif. And then if you remember from our typography video, if you don't worry, I'll link that in the description. But every typography component has a variant prop, and that variant prop can be one of these different objects. So for example, if you wanted to make a H1 text, you would, in your typography component, and I have an example of that in just a second, you would pass in the H1 object as your variant. And that H1 will get its styles from this theme, from this typography component in its theme. And, that'll set the font size, it'll make it bigger. It might make the font weight a bit darker. It doesn't here, but, for example, if you go to maybe subtitle, you can see the font weights are a bit different and stuff like that. So all your typography variants are controlled in here as well. And you can make custom ones as well. For example, one client that I worked for, we had to do a whole custom override of all the Material UI components for them. And they had 54 different typography variants that I had to sort of go in and hard code in the actual theme file itself. So there's a great example of this in actual use. But let's go straight to an actual example right now. So you can see here, I have a very basic site that I set up on Code Sandbox, and the link to this code will, of course, be in the description as well. But as you can see here, I have a very basic theme that I have set up here, and let's walk through it. So the first thing, if you want to create a theme, is you're going to have to import this create theme object from Material UI. So you just import it the same place that you get it from, the actual components from Material UI. And in here, you pretty much can describe the object that you want and whatever you want to override. So anything that you describe here will override the default settings, and anything you don't will keep the default settings. So for example, the first thing I'm doing is setting the mode to dark. You won't be able to see that just quite yet, but I'll show you an example where you are able to see that. But the main thing I want you to focus on here is I'm setting the main color of our primary, which if you come back, you can see palette has this primary object, and usually main is set to this sort of blue color. I am setting that to this orange. And this orange, Material UI has this whole like like repository of colors as well. So I got that from there. And if you look at their examples, they also pull things from there as well. So if you're seeing orange 500, you're like, where did they get that? That's where they got that from. But I can also set this to, for example, something like red, and I'll do that in a second. The second part of creating your own custom theme is you have to wrap whatever you want to use that theme in a theme provider and simply pass in that theme as a prop. And this theme provider also comes from the Material UI library itself, where you get all the other components. And that is pretty much it. And the cool part about this is you can also make multiple themes and nest them. So for example, if I wanted this button alone to have like another theme, I could, for example, nest that in another theme provider and then create another theme called theme 2 and pass that in. So you can also nest themes, which is pretty cool, and overwrite things that you passed in from the theme above it. But let's look at just one theme. And you can see here, the first thing I have here is I have some regular text in an H3 tags. Then I have two typographies, one that says theming example, which is just a variant H3, which you can see over here. And then I have a typography that is just a regular typography, and I pass in the color primary. And you can see if I were to comment this line out for the color primary, and what will happen is it will default it. And sorry, I don't know why Code Sandbox has been really, really slow all day, which is why I chose to actually write all of this out instead of like before I started the video rather than do it afterwards. But you'll see that it will pretty much default back to the default theme, which is going to be this blue color. And whenever Code Sandbox feels like refreshing and showing up, you'll see that this Hello Code Sandbox that has color primary will now be a bluish color. And if we wanted to go ahead and actually change different parts of it, so for example, okay, I have to, if I'm passing in this, I have to pass in the main, so I'm just going to copy this whole thing out. There we go. You can see that it just defaults back to the base Material UI component. And now, if I were to change this div into a paper component, and if you haven't watched the paper video, essentially paper just provides a background for your application. So if I were to go ahead and just pass in paper over here, you'll see that because I have mode dark here, anything that has like a background color or something like paper, which is essentially just a big div with background color, will now have the dark theme background color behind it. Now, you might be wondering, how come this regular HTML is not using the base styles that you see? And why is it that, the whole application itself isn't dark? And for that, you have to use something called the actual CSS baseline. So if we go to the CSS baseline, we can see that you can import it straight from here. And let's go to the demo. And essentially what your CSS baseline will do is it will go ahead and make it so that your entire HTML page will, by default, have elements of your Material UI. So let's go ahead and paste that into here, right above this theme, and bam. Now you can see those weird margins, for example, are gone from your HTML page. So like, for example, there was some weird like inner padding from the HTML page. And also the fact that, number one, the entire page wasn't like dark mode and only like our Material UI elements were. And if we go back to div, you'll see that, nothing's dark mode here. But as soon as we pass the CSS baseline, you can see a couple things happen. Like number one, the padding is gone. Number two, the actual whole entire HTML page inherits from the dark mode. And number three, anything that is standard HTML, like this like H3 tag over here, you can see that the actual font and like size of it isn't the same as a typography H3. But if we go back to the default theme, what it does inherit from is this right here, this like, default font size and stuff like that. So like the font size 14, the Roboto font and stuff like that. Whereas before it was just defaulting to the regular HTML, regular, Code Sandbox HTML styles and font family and stuff like that. So this theme provider and this CSS baseline, you only need once in your entire application. And you're probably going to go ahead and put that at like the very top of your at the very top of your application. So you don't actually have to nest this in any component or whatever. You can put in your app.js. You can even create the theme and stuff like that in your index.js and wrap it around your whole entire application if you wanted to. But you do not need more than one theme provider, and you do not need more than one CSS baseline unless you have specific scenarios where you want to use more than one of each of those things. Now let's look at the typography. And by the way, while I was reading the Material UI documentation, just to brush up and make sure nothing changed too much from the last theming video I did for Material UI v4, I found this amazing website that someone put together. In fact, I want to find the guy who put it together just so I can give him proper credit. It looks like his name is Brian Reynolds from Waterloo, Canada, pretty close to where I am. This guy put together an amazing website that allows you to sort of customize a Material UI theme through a UI and get the actual theme object, which I think is amazing. I think especially if you're trying to learn how theme works and create your own custom themes, it's an amazing tool. And I'm going to walk you through how to use it. So for example, there are a couple parts, and I hope this isn't too small for you guys to see. I'll try to zoom in a bit, but you can see here in the middle, they just have a basic, UI, and on the left side, you can choose between different components. And man, this guy really went all out for this. This is actually using Material UI v4. So there some things might be different that have changed. So for example, I set it to dark mode. So you'll see here there's a if you click on the palette, you can customize it from light to dark. As we saw in our example for Material UI v5, if you want to make it dark mode, you actually pass into palette a variable called mode and you set it to dark. But for Material UI v4, which is the older version, you passed in a variable called type and you pass it to dark. So that's a difference. So don't get too fooled by that. But you can see here, you can do things like go to the primary color and just choose a different, primary color. And you'll see, for example, like if I come, maybe I'll go to like a better thing to show it. But like over here, for example, like this button that has like this bluish color, it's probably getting from the it's using the primary color, and I can change that primary color to wherever I want. And you'll see it'll go ahead and give me a nice custom color, whatever it is I want. So let's also say you wanted to use a custom color that wasn't, let's say you have more colors than just the 6 I listed, primary, blah, blah, blah. Well, for like one of my websites, which I can show you guys, and let me quickly get it up, called rib.gg. Let me get that.
At Amica Insurance, we know this isn't a car. It's more.
So for rib.gg, for example, this is a website that I have for one of my startups. We have a lot more than just the custom colors you see in Material UI. So for example, we might have like different colors like over here. All of these colors you see here, like this sort of like grayed out teal, these whites, these grays and stuff like that you see over here. These colors versus this colors. We have all of that in a sort of custom color, and we also have custom like shades of it as well. So for example, if we go back to my theming example, let's go ahead and make our own custom color, and let's call this like custom rib red or something. What we can do in custom rib red is we can go ahead and make sure we put a comma there. We can go ahead and do stuff like, okay, let's import like red from Material UI just to make it easier to get the custom views. So we can give like a main, and let's make this like red like 400, and then we can make like super dark. And let's make it like red. I think like increasing the number here will increase like the opacity, which makes it darker or something. And then maybe like super light. And this is going to be how to make your own custom like color variants and stuff like that. So we can make this super light and maybe pass this into 100. And then over here, you won't be able to just pass it in through the color prop, but what you can use is the SX prop. And if you missed our video on the SX prop, let me pull it out pretty big. If the SX prop is also a really big component in Material UI, so I highly recommend watching my video on the SX prop, which I'll have in the description and stuff like that. But if we go into the SX prop, you can see that we can also target different colors and stuff like that as well. And for example, like in this example, you see that they pass in the SX prop, and all SX prop is just a way to quickly pass in styles to your component, and you have access to all these cool like theme variables and stuff like that. What we're going to do is we're going to pass the SX props, and we're just going to add the color to be custom. I'll just copy that. Custom rib red, and let me see if I have to add like theme or anything in front of that. So no, it should automatically be able to pull that from the theme dot main. Let's try that. And there we go. We now have the custom rib red main, and if I change it to super dark, you can see that it's a shade darker, and if I change it to super light, you can see that it's now a much darker red. So that's an example of how you can make like cool custom colors and use those in your components. You can also use this with use styles, which I will be talking about in a whole styles video where I show you all the different ways you can style your components and stuff like that. But for now, using the SX prop is definitely good enough. And this is a cool example to show you guys that you can make your own custom colors and stuff like that and pass them in just like this to your components. Now, the next thing, let's talk about how to make custom typographies and custom typography variants. So we're not going to be using the actual palette variable anymore. We want to target the actual typography variant. So if I were to come over here and let's say I can make override the typography. First, let's go ahead and overwrite the H3. So if I go to H3, we have this text right here is an H3 variant. So I'm going to override the default stylings for H3 and make this, maybe bigger or something like that. So we can see that in H3, the font size is 3 rem. I'm going to try to just override that because I don't want to override everything else. But let's go ahead and make this like 10 rem or something. And there we go. You can see everything else stayed the same except the font size is like really big now, and I can make it like a bit smaller or whatever. But let's put that back to default just for the sake of putting it back. And also you can edit the default font size. So for over here, you can see like even if I just had a div instead of an H3 tag over here, you can see my text will just be like that. If you modify just I believe the font size and of the default to like 2 rem, you'll see that everything that uses the default font size, like for example just a div that's not wrapped around typography, that doesn't have an actual typography variant, and we'll give Code Sandbox like a year to catch up here, will by default also have that. So after some debugging, I realized you just have to pass in a number value, and that number value will actually change the entire scale at which all the typography in your website go at. So for example, if I pass in 2, it'll make the font size really big, but if I pass in 30, it'll make the font size of everything super big because even the typography variants scale off that. But anyways, let's make a new custom typography, and let's call this like my variant. And for my variant, let's pass in the font size maybe to be like 5 rem. So to access that custom variant, we can go ahead to variant and pass in, my variant. And that should, and there we go. So you can see that it actually scaled it and made the font size whatever I specified in my variant. So I believe in Twilio IPv4 it wasn't able to do that. It was only hard coded to take in the default variants, but it's super nice now that you can create different variants and just access them straight up through the variant prop itself. And that's how you create custom variants. Now, the other cool thing I want to talk about when it comes to themes is the actual spacings itself. So let's go back to the example they have over here for spacings. Now, by default, if you wanted to use spacings and stuff like that, they have a whole sort of like spacing system set up where, for example, whatever you pass in, usually I believe they multiply it by a factor of 8 or 4. So if I use theme spacing 2, it'll multiply by 4 and I'll get 8 pixels and stuff like that. And this is really useful to use this instead of just manually typing in 8 pixels, because I once had a website that the whole thing, we coded the entire thing, multiple pages, tons of components, and we used theme spacing. And we had to downsize the scale because we optimized it for a larger screen size than the average user had. And when we had to change all that, all we did was change the spacing scale to be, whatever we pass and multiply by 4 to whatever we pass and multiply by 3. And that scaled everything down evenly. However, if you didn't have that, you would have to go in and manually change the padding and spacings and stylings for almost everything. So it's really important that when you pass in your spacings, you make it an appropriate amount. So let's go over here. If I were to, for example, maybe let's say, first of all, let's change this back to a nice small number. So for example, in the SX prop, you can add in a margin and you can pass in a number and it'll multiply that number by the spacing. So over here, if I pass in the shorthand M for margin on all sides and I pass in 3, it'll add 3 times 4 around everywhere. And I pass in 10, it'll add 40 margin on each side. So let's give it a margin of 2. If I come into here, into the theme, and I put spacing, I can set the default. I believe it's spacing. Let me triple check that. Yeah, the default is 4 pixels. But if I change that to maybe like 1 pixel, you'll see here that obviously it'll just multiply 1 by 2 and add 2 pixels of spacing. If I make it to 10, everything that uses any spacing in your application will naturally get built up and stuff like that as well. You can do the same thing with the shorthand for padding. And if you want to see where all these shorthands are coming from, make sure you watch the SX prop video where I go over all the different shorthands for the SX prop. But yeah, that is pretty much the most common things you will have to edit when you are making your own prop. I've showed you how to add custom spacings, add custom colors, add custom typography variants, and for the most part, everything else you could want is probably going to be found in that theming default object. But unless you're editing things like very basic things like the breakpoint and stuff like that, you probably won't have to edit much more than that. Oh, and we also talked about dark mode as well, which is pretty cool. But if you have any questions or if you want me to go over anything else in detail, like for example, I'm planning to make a whole video on how to use this theme.
Sweet. Well, that was pretty in-depth. It makes a lot of sense. Let's see if we can find a decent. I'm just gonna unshare just a tab and share my whole window. Let's see if we can find a decent MUI theme creator. Theme creator. Looks like we have quite a few. There's that guy that we saw in the in the video. Looks like Joy UI has one. Wonder how similar that is. And then we'll view this guy as well. I'm gonna open up. I just wanted to look at this real quick. It looks like in V5, the docs had a section that was just on system, on like, hey, here's the API, how to interact with MUI. Here's the explanation of the base pixel being 4, base spacing being 4 pixels, and then everything else is multiplied off on top of that. It looks like all of that is described here in this customization section, which sure makes sense. Let's see here. We got Joy UI, which obviously is not Material UI, but very similar. Interesting. Let's see here. It didn't look like they had like a theme builder over here. Default theme viewer. Oh, this is the. Hold on, I'm gonna go to system, which is dark mode. That's a little better. So hopefully it's not too hard for everyone to see. Yeah, it looks like this is exactly what the guy had on the YouTube video. With here are all the different. This is the massive object that you can pass into MUI's theme. Let's see here if I have any recommendations on a theme builder. Theme builder. The community has built many great tools to build themes. MUI theme creator. The tool helped to design. Includes basic site templates for various components and how they're affected by the theme. And then material palette generator. Generates a palette for any color you input. Okay, I don't think we need that. I'll still open it. Yeah, this is to create a palette if we don't already have one. My work already has one, so I don't have a need for it, that one. Looks like we have very similar theme builders here. Oops, that's not what I wanted. Oh, looks like this one is version 4, and this one is version 5. I wonder if there's a way for me to pick a different version. Anyway. That's not what I wanted. Yeah, it looks like he hasn't updated this from Material UI 4. So we will close it out and use this one, which is 5, which is not 6. Oh, that's something else I was going to do. I was going to YouTube, Material UI v6, and just see if there's any specific v6 videos. Doesn't look like it. I mean, maybe this is beautiful playlist. When was this made? 2022. Okay, never mind. This is still going to be V5, I guess. This might be V6 1 year ago. I'm going to throw this into a queue and then this. The reason why is because I'm interested in getting someone's opinion on, like, hey, is it worth it, sort of a thing. And like pros and cons of Material UI. Okay. Let's play around as a theme builder. Let's see here. snippets. I don't know what my theme would end up being for at work, but I can tell you the fonts would change. I don't know what it would change to, but let's just pull up this droid serif. Okay, it looks like I can't click on anything. Can I drag? Fonts using current theme. Loaded and available fonts. Okay. This seems like an interesting tool if I can't even click on anything. Whatever. I think I get the idea of how everything is supposed to look. I'll come in here and I'll mess around with theme and stuff probably later today at work, and then I'll pull it back over and get an idea for how everything looks. And that'll probably take a while to work with my designer on my team and figure out what colors everything should be, spacing, and all that fun stuff. So, anyways, see if there's anything else. I saved those videos here. I don't think there's anything else in his playlist that I will want to watch, but I'll leave this up just in case. SX prop. Yeah, I don't need to watch that. That's the same thing. I think this is just going to go over the same stuff on customization. So I'm going to close that out. And this crash course here. Of course, there's an ad. I don't think I need this. Oh, here we go. This is what I was looking for. Introduction, exploring the docs, layout, typography, themes and custom themes and providers. Or sorry, with providers. Routing other components. Maybe. Looks like he's just going over regular typography stuff. Yeah, we're just gonna close this one out. Oh, this is that theme provider that I opened up earlier. All right, so leaving this for reference just in case, and then I'll go over these two videos. I think probably honestly what's next though is to just start building stuff. At this point, we've got, yeah, I think we've got enough that we've learned in terms of needing to know how to use MUI and all of that. We kind of got the crash course, so I think we're good to start building with it and creating that page a little bit, making it work. Although looking at what time it is 6:47. I'm gonna go on my little morning walk, which is where I have like thinking time to myself, no music, no podcast, nothing. And kind of like my meditation time, but with a nice walk, so it makes it a little easier to or it's a little nicer because I get in some sort of extra exercise. Yeah. I think that's it for today. So I'll see you guys later.